Walk into any electronics store and the sales associate will probably steer you toward the OLED display. The demo looks absolutely stunning with its perfect blacks and vibrant colors under carefully controlled showroom lighting. You're impressed, maybe even ready to buy. But here's what nobody tells you. That showroom experience has almost nothing to do with how you'll actually use a TV in your home. The reality is that LED TVs, especially the newer Mini-LED variants, are dominating real-world performance in actual living rooms. And the gap between showroom demos and home reality is bigger than most people realize. Before we break down why LED is winning where it actually matters, hit that subscribe button and drop a like. Now tell me, which TV are you using right now and what problems are you facing with it? Your real-world experience is exactly what this video is about, so share it in the comments. The showroom illusion. Let's talk about why showroom demos are so misleading. When you walk into a store, those OLED displays are set up in the most flattering conditions possible. The lighting is dim and carefully controlled. There are no windows blasting sunlight onto the screen. The demo content is specifically chosen to showcase OLED strengths, dark movie scenes with bright highlights, nature documentaries with rich colors, content that makes those perfect blacks really pop. This is the equivalent of only test driving a sports car on a perfectly smooth racetrack and never taking it onto actual roads with potholes and traffic. Your living room is nothing like that showroom. Most homes have windows that let in natural light during the day. You have lamps, overhead lights, maybe sunlight streaming in during afternoon viewing. Your family wants to watch TV at various times, not just during perfectly controlled evening darkness. This is where the gap between OLED showroom magic and LED's real-world practicality becomes obvious. The technology that looks best in an artificial demo environment isn't necessarily the one that performs best where you'll actually use it for the next 5 to 10 years. Brightness, the real-world game changer? This brings us to the single biggest factor determining TV performance in real homes: brightness. Modern LED TVs, particularly Mini-LED models, achieve peak brightness levels of 2000 nits and beyond. Some high-end models push past 3000 nits in specific scenarios. Compare this to old, which typically maxes out between 1000 and 1500 nits depending on the model and how much of the screen is bright. In a dark room with no ambient light, OLED's lower brightness isn't a problem because the perfect blacks create incredible contrast. But the moment you introduce real-world lighting conditions, everything changes. Think about how you actually watch TV. Maybe it's Saturday afternoon and you're watching a football game with sunlight coming through the windows. Or it's a weekday evening and you have lamps on because your family is moving around the room. Or maybe it's Sunday morning and you're catching up on news with all the curtains open. In every single one of these scenarios, brightness becomes crucial for image clarity and color saturation. An old TV in these conditions looks washed out. The colors lose their punch. Details in bright scenes become harder to see. You find yourself squinting or closing curtains just to see the TV properly. Meanwhile, an LED TV with high brightness cuts through that ambient light like it's not even there. The image stays vibrant, clear, and easy to watch without any environmental adjustments. This isn't just theory. Real-world testing consistently shows that LED TVs maintain image quality across a much wider range of lighting conditions. When independent reviewers test TVs in simulated living room environments rather than dark rooms, LED and Mini-LED models often score higher for overall usability. The reason is simple. Most people watch most of their content in conditions where brightness matters more than perfect blacks. OLED optimizes for the 20% of viewing that happens in darkness, while LED optimizes for the 80% that happens in normal home lighting. Mini-LED, closing the contrast gap. Now you might be thinking, sure LED is brighter, but doesn't OLED still win on contrast and black levels? This is where Mini-LED technology has fundamentally changed the equation. Traditional LED TVs used edge lighting or a small grid of backlight zones, maybe a few dozen at most. This created noticeable blooming where bright objects would have halos of light bleeding into dark areas. OLED's perfect blacks made traditional LED look primitive by comparison. But Mini-LED has changed everything. Mini-LED backlighting uses thousands of tiny LEDs arranged behind the screen. each with independent brightness control. High-end mini-LED TVs feature anywhere from 1000 to 5000 or even more dimming zones. This allows incredibly precise control over which parts of the screen are lit and which are dark. The result is contrast that approaches OLED levels in most scenes. Yes, if you put them side by side in a pitch black room showing a test pattern with a single white dot on a black background, OLED will still have slightly better blacks around that dot. But in actual content with actual lighting conditions, the difference becomes nearly imperceptible to most viewers. What's remarkable is that Mini-LED achieves this near-OLED contrast while maintaining its massive brightness advantage. You get deep blacks and dark scenes and HDR highlights that absolutely pop in ways OLED simply cannot match. The blooming that plagued early LED TVs is reduced to barely noticeable levels in quality Mini-LED implementations. And here's the kicker. You get all this without any of OLED's drawbacks or concerns. It's becoming increasingly difficult to justify OLED's premium pricing when Mini-LED delivers comparable contrast with superior brightness, especially in real home environments. The burn-in reality nobody discusses. Let's address the elephant in the room that old manufacturers and enthusiasts don't like talking about. Burn-in remains a real concern, not because it's common, but because it fundamentally changes how you use your TV. Modern OLEDs have dramatically reduced burn-in risk through various technologies, and for most viewing patterns, it's unlikely to occur. But unlikely isn't the same as impossible, and more importantly, the worry itself affects your viewing experience. If you're a gamer, particularly someone who plays the same game regularly, you're dealing with static HUD elements, health bars, mini-maps, score displays that stay in the same position for hours. Hundreds of hours of this creates uneven pixel wear on OLED. If you watch a lot of news channels, those persistent logos and tickers are exactly the kind of static content that causes problems. If you use your TV as a computer monitor, taskbars and desktop icons are burn-in nightmares. If you pause content frequently and walk away, that paused image sits there stressing the same pixels. All of these are normal, everyday use cases that millions of people engage in regularly. LED TVs eliminate this concern entirely. There is no organic material to degrade, no pixel level wear to worry about. You can leave your TV paused for hours, game with the same HUD elements indefinitely, watch news channels all day, use it as a monitor, whatever you want without any concern about long-term image retention. This isn't just about whether burn-in will actually happen to you, it's about the psychological freedom of using your expensive purchase however you want without restrictions or worry. That peace of mind has real value that never shows up in showroom demos, but affects your daily experience for years. Longevity and long-term value, beyond burn-in, LED technology simply lasts longer under typical usage conditions. LED panels are rated for 50,000 hours or more of operation before reaching half brightness. That's over 22 years of watching 6 hours per day. OLED panels face gradual degradation in brightness and color accuracy over time, with the blue subpixels degrading faster than others. This isn't catastrophic decline, but it's measurable and meaningful over the 10-year lifespan many people keep their TVs. This degradation accelerates with certain usage patterns, particularly extended viewing at high brightness levels. HDR content, which is increasingly common, pushes old pixels harder and contributes to faster wear. Sports content, which is often watched at higher brightness settings, also accelerates degradation. Again, these aren't unusual edge cases, they're normal viewing habits. LED technology doesn't suffer from this progressive decline. Your TV looks essentially the same in year 8 as it did in year 1. For a purchase you're likely keeping for a decade, that consistency matters. Size and value, the practical consideration, here's where LED completely changes the conversation for most buyers. Screen size and pricing. The average American living room can comfortably accommodate an 75-inch to 85-inch TV, and many can go even larger. Modern homes are being built with walls designed for these massive displays. Consumer preferences have shifted dramatically toward bigger screens, with 75-inch plus models seeing the fastest growth in the market. This is where OLED hits a wall, both literally and figuratively. Manufacturing large OLED panels is incredibly expensive and technically challenging. The yield rates drop as panels get bigger, meaning more production failures and higher costs for successful units. A 77-inch OLED TV typically costs $2,500 to $4,000 or more, depending on the model and features. Meanwhile, you can find excellent 85-inch Mini-LED TVs for $1,000 to $1,500 during regular sales. That's not just a modest price difference, it's a fundamentally different value proposition. You're getting a significantly larger screen with comparable or better performance in real-world conditions for less than half the price. For many households, that extra screen size makes a bigger difference to viewing enjoyment than the difference between LED and old picture quality. There's a reason movie theaters use massive screens. Size is its own quality. And with Mini-LED closing the contrast gap, you're not making a major picture quality sacrifice anymore. You're getting an immersive, theater-like experience at a price point that makes sense for regular families rather than just enthusiasts. This price and size advantage is why LED is winning in actual sales numbers, even as reviewers continue praising OLED. Real-world scenario analysis. Let's walk through how these technologies perform in actual daily situations. Imagine it's Saturday afternoon and you're watching a basketball game. The room has natural daylight, maybe some lamps on, people are moving around, talking, snacking. The LED TV's high brightness means the game looks vivid and clear. Colors pop, fast motion stays smooth and visible. The old TV in the same conditions looks dimmer, colors are less saturated, and you're fighting glare reflections on the screen. The game is watchable, but not optimal. Now consider weekday evening viewing. Your family is binge-watching a series. Episodes autoplay, and sometimes someone pauses to grab a drink or answer the phone, leaving the screen paused for 5 or 10 minutes. Over months and years, those pause screens with static network logos on an old TV contribute to uneven pixel wear. The LED TV doesn't care. Pause it for hours if you want. No concern whatsoever. Or think about gaming sessions. Your teenager plays Fortnite for 3 hours with the same HUD elements on screen the whole time. Multiply this by hundreds of gaming sessions over a couple years. On OLED, you're accumulating uneven wear. On LED, it's a non-issue. Even for movie watching, which is OLED's strongest use case, the real-world gap is smaller than you'd think. Yes, in a completely dark room showing a movie with lots of dark scenes, OLED has an edge in black levels and shadow detail. But how many people consistently watch movies in completely dark rooms? Most movie nights happen with at least some ambient light. Maybe you have a dim lamp on so people can navigate the room. Maybe there's light bleeding in from another room. In these more realistic conditions, LED's brightness advantage maintains picture quality better than OLED's perfect blacks. The energy efficiency factor. Here's an aspect that rarely gets discussed but affects your experience and wallet: energy consumption patterns. OLED's efficiency varies dramatically based on content brightness. When displaying mostly dark content, OLED is quite efficient because most pixels are off or dim. But when displaying bright content, especially in bright viewing environments, OLED has to drive pixels harder and power consumption increases significantly. This is exactly backward from typical usage patterns. You need the TV brightest in bright rooms with ambient light, which is when OLED efficiency drops. LED TVs maintain more consistent power consumption across different content types and brightness levels. Modern Mini-LED implementations are surprisingly efficient despite their high brightness capabilities. The backlight zones that aren't needed stay off or dim, saving power while maintaining picture quality. Over years of use, this translates to meaningful differences in electricity costs and environmental impact. It's not a primary purchasing factor for most people, but it's another real-world consideration where LED has practical advantages. Why enthusiasts still recommend OLED? It's worth acknowledging why OLED maintains its reputation among enthusiasts and reviewers despite these real-world limitations. For true home theater setups with dedicated dark rooms, light-controlled environments, and carefully curated viewing experiences, a LED still delivers the most accurate and visually stunning picture. Videophiles who watch mostly movies in optimal conditions, who don't game with static HUDs, and who prioritize absolute picture quality over practical concerns, a LED remains the pinnacle. The next time you're TV shopping and someone tries to wow you with an OLED demo, remember that demo has nothing to do with how that TV will perform in your home with your lighting and your viewing habits. Choose the technology that matches your reality, not someone else's ideal. For most people, that means choosing LED and enjoying a bigger, brighter, worry-free viewing experience for less money. If this breakdown helped you see past the marketing hype and understand what actually matters for TV performance in real homes, hit that subscribe button for more honest tech analysis. Drop a like if you're now rethinking your TV choice. And most importantly, comment below with your own experience. Are you happy with your old and real-world conditions, or do you wish you'd gone with LED? Has brightness been an issue, or have you experienced any burning concerns? Your real-world experience helps other viewers make better decisions, so share it below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video where we cut through more tech marketing to find what actually works in real life.